Sorry about that. Something hit my window. Kind of threw me off. Was talking about the goals of the presentation, explaining why communication between player and coaches is crucial for team success. Uh, Another goal, address different communication types between players and coaches. And then the third part is educating coaches on what is beneficial in coaching techniques. Next slide is why communicate. In the article that I chose, it states by refocusing participation in sports on the learning process rather than on winning percentages, coaches may find athletes developing a greater appreciation for the sport, for the behaviors taught during sport participation, for their teammates, and for their coaches. Sports, obviously, amazing way to learn life lessons as well as work with other team members in a professional setting as a coach or a player. Obviously, in the work setting, it kind of sticks out to me. You're usually, for the most part, most jobs, you have to work with other people. And obviously, growing up, participating in sports from a young age, at least personally for me, being able to have teamwork, work with different personalities, see what makes people click, what makes them mad, makes them happy. Obviously, playing sports helps with that. Uh, Facing adversity, things of that nature. Coaches obviously have a huge impact in a player's life and are able to convey messages that are important life lessons for players, I believe. Obviously, doing the right thing, being on time, respecting others, respecting the game, or just a couple of things. Lessons from sport. I'll piggyback on what I was talking about. From a communication aspect, how to communicate with coaches or authority figures. Obviously, you kind of do this growing up with your parents, but even with teachers and coaches. And then how to communicate with teammates on and off the field. Obviously, sports are very passionate, can get heated at times. Being able to keep your cool and not let that communication they have on the field that may have escalated continue off the field. From a leadership standpoint, leading by example with your actions on and off the field, and leading with your voice, motivating players and other staff members. So let me go back to the lead by example with your actions on and off the field. Obviously, that's important, especially with looking up to role models in the sporting world. Obviously, with social media and stuff of that nature, things get a little blown out of proportion, I think. So kind of choosing what leaders to follow, what leaders to look up to are very important. Leadership styles. Okay, there's 5 of them that are mentioned in the article. Autocratic, democratic, social support, positive feedback, and then training and instruction. Now, autocratic is creating a separation between player and coach. It's based on authority established by the coach, shown to have an inverse effect on players. An example, a coach who is not very concerned with a player's identity outside of the playing field. Now, I think this is kind of outdated coaching style. That was probably back 15, 20, 30 years ago. Obviously, there's still some coaches like this, but I believe kids these days look for that relationship with a coach on and off the field. Now, with like recruiting with us, obviously it's important to have a great relationship because when things get tough, you can go back to that relationship always and know that coaches will have your back no matter what. With regards to the coach who's not very concerned with a player's identity outside of the playing field, I think coaches of this nature kind of have their players think they're being used, at least at the NCAA level. Democratic, all inclusive when making decisions, promotes participation by student athletes in your program. Example of this, a coach who looks for the advice of his team as well as the rest of the staff when making decisions for the program. Now, this obviously has its pros and cons, but this is probably more of a coaching style that is seen in 2018 compared to 30 years ago. Next one is social support. A couple keys to this: enables an open environment for player, and player coach healthy communication, allows socialization and development of friendships and mentoring. An example of social support is a coach who is deeply concerned with the well-being of his players on and off the court. This kind of goes back to a little bit of democratic, but this is very important in today's age. The kids want to know that you care about them on the court and off the court. A personal example of this, I worked for a guy named Paul Trevor at Stanislaus State. Did a phenomenal job of coaching his players hard on the court, but loving them off the court. When I went back and talked about Coach Sotomayor, Coach Trevor does a phenomenal job at that. Sugar and spice. He loves them off the court, loves them on the court, but really coaches them hard and gets the best out of them. The positive feedback aspect, using communication to praise athletes for success or growth. This is kind of similar to the sandwich method that teachers use and coaches, where you compliment, criticize, and then compliment. A coach who constructively criticizes his or her athletes without personally attacking them is an example. It's kind of hard, things get heated, like I said earlier, but there are multiple coaches that are able to do this. And then the last one is the training instruction model. Development towards the athlete's individual and team skills, and then the development of knowledge for their respective game. An example of this, a coach who focuses on the development and skill set of players, functions more as a trainer rather than a mentor or close friend. Some benefits of the coaching techniques are beneficial ones. It's first important to understand all teams and players have different personalities and characters. We're just talking about as a staff, like athletes on any campus are the most diverse group at any university. If you look, you have all kinds. You have African American, white, you have Filipino, Japanese, so on and so on. And they all have different personalities. You got to see what makes them tick. They all come from different backgrounds. Positive feedback will establish interest and increase involvement in the athlete's sport. Conclusion, focus on the process and getting better rather than the end result. Obviously, in collegiate athletics at least, if you don't win, you get fired. That's probably the tough part. But focusing on the process, doing things the right way, it'll take care of itself. Often creates a better overall work environment to thrive in as a player and a coach. And then experiment with different leadership communication styles that fit you. Every player and staff member needs different communication and leadership to maximize their potential. And I've read that certain programs take personality tests just to see what makes players tick. I think it's a great idea because obviously people can be yelled at and respond in a positive way, and then some people that you yell at shut down. So that's important to maximize potential. And that's all I got. I hope you guys enjoy. Look forward to hearing your guys's or reading, watching your guys's PowerPoints and finish out strong.